LSU adds another big piece for the class of 2026. It's Locked on LSU. Here we go.
You are Locked on LSU, your daily podcast on the LSU Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Okay, let's get it. It is Locked on LSU, your team every day. I'm your host, Matt Moscona. Thanks so much for making us your first listen. We're free, available wherever you get podcasts, of course, on YouTube as well. So please subscribe. As always, one of the fastest ways to help us grow is by leaving your comments below. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. What a massive football show we have for you today with three different players at three different positions, both current and future LSU Tigers that are really significant. Tigers land a big commit for 2026. Another delay for running back Trey Holly. What does that mean for the running back spot in 26 and beyond? We'll talk about it. And there will be a new punter at LSU in 2026, which is significant. Don't you laugh. Don't you laugh when I bring up punter. It's been an issue since Brian Kelly's been on campus. We're going to talk about that coming up here in just a smidge. So thank you for being with us here. But let us start with the news that LSU got over the weekend, and that is that Des Ellis out of Franklin Parish has committed to LSU for the class of 2026. If you're not familiar with Des Ellis, that's okay. I got all the deets that you need to know. He is 6'2", 163 pounds in his recruiting profile, but obviously with that frame can put on more size. Since Franklin Parish consolidated, this is up in Winsboro, North Louisiana, this is the first recruit ever to earn an offer from LSU out of Franklin Parish. So a really big deal for that community. Now remember, this is what's really important about Des Ellis. When I read you his star rating, his ranking, positional ranking, all that stuff, it's not going to be impressive. But I'm going to tell you why, okay? Des Ellis is a quarterback at Franklin Parish. He is such a good athlete at that position, by the way, that he is being recruited by West Virginia in the Big 12 to play quarterback. Really good athlete playing quarterback. But at 6'2", 165 pounds, actually trending more like 180 right now going into his senior season, Corey Raymond wants him at cornerback. So a guy that's a high school quarterback but is projecting at LSU as a cornerback. So he is 6'2", listed at 163 pounds. Nationally, he's the number 572 prospect in the composite. He is a composite 3-star, the 30th best athlete, the 17th best player in Louisiana for the class of 2026. But I think this is what's so important. I always tell you, I'm not so much interested in the star rating or the ranking or any of that stuff. It's who is recruiting you. Well, when West Virginia is recruiting you as a quarterback and you have an offer from Michigan State as well, you have smaller school offers, Tech, Southern Miss, Tulane, stuff like that. But really the question here is, do you trust Corey Raymond? That's the question I want to ask you. Do you trust Corey Raymond's evaluation? If you're an everydayer, you've heard me say this, so shout out and go back with me. One of my biggest criticisms when Brian Kelly got hired is that he brought in Brian Polian as his recruiting coordinator. I'm going to connect the dots here. This will make sense. So he brings in Brian Polian as the recruiting coordinator. And one of the first things they did is they went and offered a 3-star cornerback out of Bishop Gorman in Las Vegas. And it was Jeremiah Hughes. And Jeremiah Hughes was in Baton Rouge for 1 year and then transferred out. And the point I made when they signed Jeremiah Hughes was exactly this. Why in the world at LSU do you get on a plane, invest the resources to get on a plane and fly to Las Vegas to recruit a 3-star cornerback? If you want to get on a plane and go to Florida to recruit Patrick Peterson, awesome. You want to get on a plane and go to California to recruit Eli Ricks? Yes. You get on a plane and fly to Vegas to recruit a 3-star and Jeremiah Hughes, throw a rock and you're going to hit 3-star cornerbacks in Louisiana. As evidence here with Des Ellis. Now, I don't mean in any way for that to be dismissive of Des Ellis. It's only to say the state of Louisiana produces per capita more athletes at that position than just about any other state in the country. You can find a rangy 6'2" athlete that can flip his hips and run, that's long and tall, that Corey Raymond wants, and you don't have to get on a plane to go recruit him. So that's the point here, is Des Ellis is a dude that fits exactly the mold of what Corey Raymond wants. Think about it. Think about the cornerbacks that Corey Raymond has brought into Baton Rouge and developed. Go back to guys like Morris Claiborne and Thorold Simon, all the way through to the aforementioned Eli Ricks and Dwight McGlothern. Corey Raymond wants long, athletic corners. That's what he wants. And so here you have a dude from Franklin Parish in Louisiana who's 6'2", great body, great athlete, that Corey Raymond goes, yup, I can do something with that. And you think throughout LSU's history, Nick Saban converting Josh Reed from a running back to a receiver. Corey Webster, really the first guy that was part of the DBU transformation back in 2003. Corey Webster came to campus. He was a high school quarterback that ultimately became a great cornerback. So go back to my question. Do you trust Corey Raymond that he knows what he's looking for? And if you trust Corey Raymond knows what skill set he's looking for at that position, then you'll love Des Ellis. And you'll ignore the fact that he's a 3-star because he's just playing a position in high school that isn't what he projects at LSU. And you think about PJ, like as soon as Corey Raymond got here, boom, PJ Woodland. Yup. And PJ Woodland was a 3-star, but he fits the mold of what Corey Raymond wants and has a really good freshman year and projects with a very high ceiling at LSU. So I'm excited about Des Ellis. Got to see Des Ellis when he was on campus for LSU's spring game, spring scrimmage, whatever you want to call it. He was there with his family, and you could tell he fits the mold of what Corey Raymond wants. And as you project, remember, in 2025, you've got Ashton Stamps back for a junior season. You brought in transfers. You've got Mansour Delane coming in from Virginia Tech. You've got Jakeem Jackson coming in from Florida, who Corey Raymond had recruited to Florida. But as you project to 2026 and beyond, you're going to have to start building up that depth at that position. And so Des Ellis now is the second cornerback for the class of 2026. Remember, they've also got already committed Haven Finney. Haven Finney, 6'2", 170, sound familiar, out of LA, Sierra Canyon. Remember, Haven Finney was the #1 cornerback in America for 2027. He reclassified to 2026, and now he's a 4-star, the number 62 overall player in the country. So that's 2 cornerbacks now that you have already committed for the class of 2026. You got a couple of safeties as well. Aiden Hall out of Edna Carr in New Orleans. Dylan Purter out of Booker T, Washington, and Alabama, who projects as a safety at LSU as well. So 2 safeties, 2 cornerbacks already committed for LSU for the class of 2026. And this is a class now that is continuing to build right now with 11 commits. And you expect, even in this recruiting dead period, that you're going to continue to see, with the camps over in this recruiting dead period, a lot of guys want to commit before their senior year of high school. So expect to see some more movement there. We're, crossing our fingers, knocking on wood, hoping around the 4th of July, get some good news. Notably, Lamar Brown out of U High will get some news there. But again, this is a really good get for LSU. And we've talked so much about the state of Louisiana and what the state of Louisiana in 2026 means for LSU. And they're already building now in the state of Louisiana for 2026 and looking ahead to 2027 as well. Just when you look at the top players in Louisiana for 2026, as we check the boxes, and again, we're still waiting to see what's going to happen with Lamar Brown, but Lamar Brown's the #1 player in the state, uncommitted. Richard Anderson is committed. Blaine Bradford, the #3 player in the state, is committed to Ohio State, but Jabari Mack has shut down his recruitment. He's going to LSU. #5 is Aiden Hall, LSU. 6, Bryson Martinez, LSU. 7 is Kenny Darby, LSU. You get the point. Tigers have identified the top players in the state they want. They've hit on them. We're still waiting on Lamar Brown. You'd love to get Blaine Bradford to flip from Ohio State. We'll see if that can happen. But another nice get here for LSU with Des Ellis, a cornerback for the class of 2026. Now, a running back who has been on campus already for a couple of years, but has seen his availability limited because of an unfortunate off-the-field incident, has had another roadblock We'll give you the latest on Trey Holly as we continue Locked on LSU, your team every day. Summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action, so why not make it a little more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. Listen, I've used FanDuel for years. You can track your favorite matchups. The app keeps it fresh. There's new daily promotions that are always fun to bet, so get in on the action there at FanDuel. It's easy to use, the payouts are fast, and it makes even regular season games feel like must-watch events. If you're new to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. So open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com. Well, another roadblock in the Trey Holly situation, and this one is maybe even more mind-boggling than the rest to date. If you're not familiar, I'll just give you a very quick catch-up. Trey Holly signed with LSU in the class of 2023. He was the all-time leading rusher in Louisiana high school history. So a dynamic runner out of Union Parish in North Louisiana. He comes to LSU in 2023, had a great game, had the big long touchdown run against Army in that game. But again, was a little bit of a log jam as a freshman coming in. And then in that offseason before his sophomore year, he was arrested and charged with a felony in attempted murder. Now, the most serious charges were dropped, and Trey Holly has staunchly maintained his innocence. But what has happened subsequent is a series of delays and stoppages in the court system that have prevented Trey Holly from returning and rejoining the LSU team. Listen, if you're with us, last year at SEC Football Media, I can go back to spring. At the end of spring ball, Brian Kelly was anticipating resolution in April. And then we get to July. There's been no resolution. I asked Brian Kelly at SEC Media Days point blank about Trey Holly, and he says, listen, the judge in the case was J.R. Belton's father. J.R. Belton is LSU's recruiting coordinator. Now he's he's been promoted from recruiting coordinator within the LSU staff. But J.R. Belton's father was the judge, so he had to recuse himself. So that led to a delay even further when they were anticipating resolution in July, and everything just kept getting delayed. Then there was supposed to be a February hearing, and that got delayed. Now, July 7th was supposed to be when Trey Holly's court date finally was going to happen. He'd have his day in court. We all hope he's exonerated. He's able to continue on with his life and his football career. Well, the Louisiana Radio Network was the first to report that the Union Parish Courthouse this is almost unbelievable to say this out loud, that this is the thing now hindering Trey Holly's career from continuing. But the Union Parish Courthouse air conditioner is broken. And as a result, they're not able to hear court cases there at the courthouse. Now, as we sit here today, it's the end of June. Trey Holly's case is supposed to be heard at the beginning of July the 7th. You would think certainly that they could get an HVAC repairman up there to get the courthouse AC up and running. They could resume business as usual. Well, now, according to this report from LRN, the new court date could be set by July the 16th. And that's not to say that his court date is July 16th. That's to say they'll set his new court date on July the 16th. So now you look and go, when might Trey Holly be able to rejoin the LSU football team? And I just don't have the answer to that question. It is so unfortunate, man, because this is a guy who is 5'7", 192 out of Farmerville with elite level top end speed. Again, came to LSU as Louisiana's high school record holder in career rushing yards with 10,532, played 3 games as a freshman in 23, didn't play in 24 because of what we just discussed. And we were really hoping that in 2024, 5 that he would factor into the mix. But now that certainly is called into question, because until this legal proceeding has been rectified, Trey Holly can't rejoin. As long as these charges are pending against Trey Holly, it's an LSU rule that he is not eligible to rejoin and be eligible to play on LSU's team until this case is resolved. So, man, it's so unfortunate for the young man. There's two parts of this. There's Trey Holly, the person. There's the football player, which I'll talk about football in a second. But, when Trey Holly, when these charges first came about, he went immediately to social media and did exactly what you would hope that anyone would do if they're charged with something that is completely untrue. He threw his hands in the air and said, "Y'all know me. This ain't my character. I did nothing of the sort, like of what they're accusing me of." Like, he was very adamantly defending himself. And again, in this country, there is a presumption of innocence until guilt can be proven from a legal standpoint. But from the social standpoint, people might convict in the court of public opinion. But then, more importantly for Trey Holly, as it pertains to football, the rules don't allow him to play until this is rectified. So hopefully they can get this thing rectified so Trey Holly can continue with what we hope is a very promising career. Now, as you look at LSU at the running back position for 2026, Trey Holly looked to factor in some capacity. But the great thing for LSU, and again, like, I feel so much for Trey Holly, and I don't know if of what he has been accused, if he is innocent, whatever the case may be. Again, he'll have his day in court. We'll see how that all plays out. But you return Caden Durham, who had an outstanding freshman season last year, who projects to be your number one. Remember, you lose Josh Williams off of last year's team, but you return Caden Durham, Caleb Jackson, who we featured in an episode around spring ball. If you heard that episode, if you didn't, shout out to the Everydayers. But if you didn't, I would highly recommend you go check that out, because we let you hear from Caleb Jackson, who acknowledged point blank that he got high on his supply, that he started believing his press clippings. He got a little overweight. He was out of shape, and it just didn't materialize. And he never really considered leaving LSU in the offseason. He wants to make it work here for his hometown team and with his family, where they can see him play every day. Well, Caden Durham and Caleb Jackson give you a different dynamic, right, as far as their skill sets. Durham's a little more explosive. Jackson is more of a power back. And now you add Harlem Berry, who's the 5-star number one running back in the country, who does give you a little that mad dash and also the ability as a receiver out of the backfield. That gives you 3 very versatile, very different styles, running styles for this season for LSU's running back. And then remember also, you have JT Lindsey, the freshman out of Alexandria Senior High, who's also coming in. Now, I don't know what's a realistic expectation for JT Lindsey as a freshman. I would also tell you that if we were on the clock a year ago, I don't think many of us had an expectation for Caden Durham as a freshman. My hand's in the air. When every preseason interview I did last year, when someone said, "Who's the guy who nobody knows their name today that by the end of the season is going to be a breakout star?" I said Caleb Jackson. I think a lot of us did. But Caden Durham was the one that really emerged. But when you look at it, Durham, Jackson, Holly, Durham, Jackson, Berry, those 3 give you 3 very different skill sets. And the other thing I'll remind you, and again, I'm very hopeful for Trey Holly, just for the young person, that this can be rectified and continue his career. But the other thing that we saw a ton in spring, and Brian Kelly gave us a lot of access, the media, a lot of access to watch in spring, is we saw Aaron Anderson and Xavier Thomas a lot out of the backfield, Berry and Brown as well in jet sweeps. So all that to say, LSU was the worst rushing offense in the SEC a year ago, which is a mouthful to think of. But they are going to be creative in the way they approach the running game in 2025. And it's the 3 guys that I mentioned, but also when you consider Anderson, Xavier Thomas, maybe Berry and Brown as well, with how versatile they become in the running game. I mostly think this: LSU is going to be fine if Trey Holly isn't eligible. I think they've got enough talent there. They've got enough versatility and skill. I just feel very badly for Trey Holly, a talented young guy who, of no fault of his own, continues to have this proceeding delayed that has already delayed his career by a full year in 2024 and now is threatening 2025. And if you want to look back, I could point to a guy like Christian Fulton, who is supremely talented, but could have left at any point, but stayed the course and ultimately became a starting cornerback on the 2019 National Championship team. I would love to see a familiar ending for Trey Holly if it could go that way. But right now, another holdup for Trey Holly here in advance of the 2025 season. One other Tiger who won't be back for 2025 we'll talk about as we continue here on Locked on LSU, your team every day. You know who takes care of LSU's top athletes? Well, it's Our Lady of the Lake. And that same level of care is available to you and to me. Honest to goodness, true story. As I record this, I'm on vacation. And just a couple of days before we left for vacation, I started to feel a bit under the weather. And I thought, look, I'm going to be in a house with 18 people. I want to make sure that I'm not spreading anything to them. So what did I do? My primary healthcare physician is Dr. Kurt Chastain at Our Lady of the Lake Men's Health Group. Called over to Jennifer, the nurse, got an appointment, went and saw Dr. Chastain and his group. They tested me, ship shape, just a little head cold, and I was off and running. The point is, the same great healthcare that's available to the LSU athletes and LSU students is available to you and to me. I've shared with you for years about how my son Drew is cared for by some of the specialists, Our Lady of the Lake Children's Hospital. We are talking about game-changing care that keeps athletes at their best and builds a stronger, healthier Louisiana for all of us. Because this partnership isn't just about LSU sports. It's about caring for all of us, creating opportunity and leading the next generation of healthcare talent right here at home. So whether you're on the field, you're in the stands, or you're just doing life, know that championship-level healthcare is right here for you. You can learn more at ololrmc.com/LSU. Again, that's ololrmc.com/LSU. Our Lady of the Lake and LSU. Together, we roar. As we put a button here on today's episode of Locked on LSU, we know definitively now that LSU will have at least one new specialist in 2025. And that's because Peyton Todd is not returning to LSU. So a quick recap, Peyton Todd, who signed with LSU back in the class of 2021. And he was the number one punter in America when he signed with LSU out of West Monroe in the class of 2021. He redshirted in 21. And man, the thing about Peyton Todd is that he has this booming leg. And it's so obvious. He's a massive guy, too. He's listed at 6'4", 6'5". He's 6'5", 230. So he is a massive punter, just a big physical specimen, and he could boom it. But the problem with Peyton Todd was consistency. Last year, spring game 2024, after the 2024 spring game, Brian Kelly was asked about Peyton Todd, and he said, quote, I'm reading this quote, "Not as consistent as I would like. I thought today, the spring game, was an opportunity for him to just say there is no competition here, and he's got to be more consistent, quite frankly." Well, that consistency never happened. If you remember, after the spring game, LSU went and added Blake Oxendorf a year ago, and so you had both Oxendorf coming in from Louisiana Tech and Peyton Todd, and they battled it out. Todd was kind of your longer punter. Oxendorf was more of your pooch punter a season ago. For Peyton Todd, he ended up with 19 punts on the season for an average of 41.3 yards. Todd was also your primary holder on field goals and PATs a season ago. But unfortunately, the consistency never materialized. And Oxendorf was out of eligibility. So coming into this year, Brian Kelly and his staff had to look and go, do you trust Peyton Todd to finally be consistent, or do you bring in help? Well, they brought in help. They brought in Grant Chadwick from Middle Tennessee. Grant Chadwick just spent his freshman season at Middle Tennessee. He was honorable mention All-Conference USA. He went into the transfer portal, and LSU went and looked and said, there's a guy who's been a consistent punter at the place he was. Let's bring him in to compete with Peyton Todd. And Todd took that as a signal to say, I need to go somewhere where I can play. So Peyton Todd is in his final year of eligibility. Remember, he signed with LSU in 2021, and he played just marginally over the last 3 years. So he redshirted in 21. Remember, there's no COVID year. So he redshirted in 21. He's played each of the last 3 years. So he has 1 year of eligibility remaining. 2025 is it. So he's got to be to go somewhere where he's going to be able to kick for a team all season. And there's just no guarantee that's going to happen at LSU. And maybe the one thing we haven't talked enough about this offseason is the consistency of special teams. We've talked about all that LSU has added in the transfer portal, and maybe not enough on Grant Chadwick. Remember, you're returning Damian Ramos, who's been very good for you as a place kicker for the last 3 years. And you return Aaron Burrell. Now, Burrell was outstanding as a kickoff specialist. I mean, he's an automatic touchback. Now, the real question for Burrell with the massive leg is, can he become your field goal PAT guy after Damian Ramos? But for now, as a kickoff specialist, he's been great. And I don't think you worry at all about your return specialists as well. When you've got Aaron Anderson and Barian Brown, who was an All-American return specialist, and Xavier Thomas, you got guys, right? You got return specialists. The real question is at punter. Can you develop some consistency? And so for Peyton Todd, he's headed to ULM. He's out of West Monroe, so he's headed to his hometown to play for ULM, where he'll kick in his final season. But that means that Grant Chadwick is going to be LSU's punter for 2025. Maybe the final missing piece on a team that seems to have everything else together. Man, it's exciting as we're getting closer to the start of the college football season. And as we get closer, we'll talk tons about it right here on Locked On LSU. Hey, thanks so much for making us your first listen. Again, we're free, available wherever you get podcasts. If you're on podcasts, please subscribe on your favorite podcast app. Rate us, leave a review. If you're on YouTube, please smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell so you're notified whenever we post a new video. And please be sure to let a friend know as well that if they love the Tigers, we got you here every single day. It's Locked On LSU, your team every day.